Democrats on Capitol Hill today are sounding the alarm after Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent floated the idea of economic support for the UAE, citing the country's close financial ties to the Trump family. New York Times reports that, quote, it is not clear how big a lifeline the Emirates might need or even whether it needs one at all. What is clear, however, is the financial relationship between the UAE and the Trump family. Earlier this year, the brother of the UAE's president bought a 49% stake in the Trump family crypto company, World Liberty Financial. It's a company which one Trump supporter and investor said was a, quote, golden opportunity to leverage the Trump brand to profit through fraud. He said that in a lawsuit he filed against the company. Donald Trump's sons have cleaned up during the war with Iran, with Donald Jr. personally benefiting from making investments in prediction markets, investments which have gone up tenfold in value since the start of Trump's second term as president. The AP reports this, quote, one of the biggest fee generators lately has been Trump's approach to the Iran war. Notably, his Truth Social post on April 5th, demanding the country, quote, open the effing strait. Trading on Polymarket soared with yes or no wagers on whether an invasion was imminent. That's according to one analysis firm, only to be surpassed on April 7th by betting on another question. Will there be a ceasefire? When Trump posted ominously that a, quote, whole civilization will die tonight. The Trump administration has sued states that are trying to ban prediction markets. And of course, there's the whole category that is the other son, Eric Trump. He recently went on Fox News to champion a $24 million Pentagon contract that his robotics company won.
I couldn't believe what I saw. Coming from hospitality, the uses are unlimited. When you go up and you interact with these robots and they fist bump you, they high five you, they follow your commands, you bring in AI autonomy, it's going to change industry, it's going to change military application, it's going to change hospitality.
The interview where Eric Trump talks about how robots can fist bump will be with me forever. Well, the Trumps are making out like bandits, with the Trump family's net worth up by nearly $3 billion since the second term began 15 months ago. The economic anxiety and the economic pain, the cost for everyone else in America is soaring, including for a whole bunch of Donald Trump's own voters and supporters who put him back in the White House largely because he promised them he would lower the cost of everything. Remember? The groceries, everything. Now, the International Monetary Fund says that the war in Iran could trigger a global recession. And the executive director of the International Energy Agency says that we are facing the biggest energy security threat in history. Grift for me, rising gas prices for thee, as Donald Trump's approach to running the White House is where we start today. Political analyst, former Senator Claire McCaskill joins us. Also joining us, Scott MacFarlane. He is now the chief Washington correspondent and host of Scott MacFarlane Reports for the Midas Touch, which I get in my email and I watch every day. You are absolutely killing it, my friend. And with me at the table for the hour, former Undersecretary of State for Public Diplomacy and Public Affairs during the Obama administration, MS Now political analyst Rick Stengel. Claire, I know that everything has been shuffled in the time of Trump, but there are a couple things that voters have always absolutely loathed, absolutely hated, and it is stealing and grifting and self-enrichment, corruption. Trump is doing it in full view, and so are his kids. What is the political, why haven't the laws of political gravity caught up with them?
Well, the corruption has been swallowed whole by the chaos. And Trump kind of knows that. I mean, he is chaotic on purpose. I mean, even within one sentence, he is chaotic, much less the way he's trying to run the country. So, it is, but it's fascinating to me because the Democrats are rightly focused on cost, but it really is the three C's, is cost and chaos and corruption. And the corruption is by far the most serious this country has ever seen. I mean, think back to the time that the Republicans were losing their over Biden's son being on a board and selling some paintings. And look at what these sons are doing. It is outrageous that Eric Trump is getting contracts with the Pentagon. And somebody needs to be doing an investigation. If not now, then hopefully after we win in November, as to whether or not that was a competitive bid. I bet you a buck it wasn't.
And what about, I mean, Claire, what is sort of all the atrophied muscles in Congress certainly reveal themselves when Trump and his allies are enriching themselves on matters of war, where 13 U.S. service members have died, have lost their lives, 13 American families buried, sons and daughters, and a bunch of Trump cronies got rich on betting on which way the war would go?
Well, first of all, this has got to stop. I mean, betting on war is really not an American value. Making money off predicting what government does without any kind of regulation. I mean, we're worried about members of Congress trading stock. Give me a break. They've got to file really detailed financial disclosures every year. Isn't anybody worried about who's betting on these unregulated markets? Members of Congress and everybody in the Trump administration can make a boatload of money betting on these markets with insider information. And there's nobody policing it. It's frankly beyond outrageous. And there's so much work to be done if the Democrats do take majorities in the House and or the Senate in terms of investigations. But at the top of the list, it needs to be this corruption, because people need to make a stand that this is not going to be accepted in the future. This is not who we are as a country. This is not what the founding fathers envisioned, the way they set up our Constitution.
Yeah, I mean, Scott, I'm not sure how much of this even needs a roll-up-your-sleeves, old-school SDNY-style forensic accounting investigation. So much of it is happening in full view. Here's how Senator John Ossoff describes it.
Well, let's call it what it would be, which is a bailout for the United Arab Emirates. The financial entanglement, the way that UAE money, Emirati money from Emirati royals has compromised this White House is astonishing. It may be one of the most significant scandals in American history. Who are the president's two chief negotiators in the Middle East? Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff. Witkoff and his family are partners. His son, Zach Witkoff, is the key partner in the Trump family crypto business, which has received vast sums of money from Emirati royalty. The spy chief, the national security advisor in the United Arab Emirates, acquired a 49% stake in that business before the United States agreed to grant the UAE access to our most sensitive AI chips. Then you have Jared Kushner, his private equity firm, Affinity Partners, which in addition to receiving billions of dollars from Saudi Arabia, has received a lot of Emirati money. The people doing our diplomacy are at the same time doing personal business across the region that's enriching the first family. And meanwhile, my constituents in Georgia are paying $4 for gas, paying more for groceries, rent, power, and a meal out at a restaurant than ever before in American history.
I take Claire's point that the chaos and velocity of scandal make it difficult to focus in on one thing. But there is one thing that is never shielded from our eyes, and that's the fact that Jared Kushner, who is, by his own description of himself, a businessman, a man who didn't hide his pursuit of Middle East millions and millions. He got more than Steve Mnuchin got at the end of the first term after not having really the same kind of record as an investor. He has made no secret of all of the millions and millions in Middle East money he has under his direction. And he is the public face of American diplomacy at the time of war.
I appreciate that Senator McCaskill is willing to wager $1. I will bet the whole farm Democrats launch an investigation into Eric Trump's contract, Jared Kushner's business dealings, if and when they get the majority back in January. You can make book on that right now. But I can't get past the domestic politics of all this. Money for the UAE because of the war in Iran. Money for the Trump family or a contract for the Trump family, while clearly Prices are the defining issue with roughly 150 days, Nicole, till early voting starts. And I saw a number that was shared with me earlier today. $250 million has been reserved by the House Majority PAC there to elect more Democrats in November. Listen to the states they're putting money in now. Tennessee, South Carolina, and Alaska. So U.S. House races. And this is like picking these economic issues for the Trump administration is like picking up a bunch of kryptonite and juggling it if you're Superman. You are begging for trouble.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth decided that now would be a great time to fire the Secretary of the Navy, a person named John Phelan. 3 people familiar with internal discussions tell the Wall Street Journal that Phelan's firing comes after a rocky tenure under Hegseth, which included tension over Phelan's close relationship with Donald Trump. Quote, Phelan regularly chats with Trump at his Mar-a-Lago club just down the street from his own Florida home and told lawmakers last year that he exchanges texts with the president about shipbuilding in the middle of the night, as one does. It is just the latest removal of a senior military officer by Pete Hegseth, and it comes after he forced out the Army's top uniformed officer, General Randy George. The New York Times is reporting that the timing of the firing could have consequences. Quote, the tumult could make it harder for the Navy to replenish its stock of Tomahawk missiles and high-end air defense systems, which have been in heavy use in Iran. Phelan has been replaced by Hung Cao, who has been a key ally of Pete Hegseth inside the Pentagon. I want to bring in Politico Pentagon reporter Paul McCleary, also joining us, retired U.S. Army Brigadier General Steve Anderson. Let me start with you, Paul, and your reporting on this.
Yeah, Phelan came into the Pentagon and as Secretary of the Navy without really any history with the military or particularly the Navy, right? So, he came in kind of blind, and the Navy is hard. I mean, they've been struggling with shipbuilding and ship maintenance for 2 decades at least now, right? So coming into a really difficult job at a really difficult time with no prior history or real knowledge of it he started off behind the 8 ball. And, Phelan kind of bragging that he was exchanging texts with Trump about shipbuilding in the middle of the night might have been part of his undoing here, right? Because he's the one who pushed this idea of this Trump-class battleship, which could cost as much as $17 billion per ship. And it's not something that the DOD, Pete Hegseth, or the Deputy Secretary, Steve Feinberg, want. I mean, it's this huge ship, costs a lot of money, hundreds of sailors aboard, when the Navy wants to go the opposite way, have smaller, more smaller ships, with fewer sailors and go more uncrewed systems. So they were really unhappy, I know, at the Pentagon over this Trump-class battleship, and I think that was part of it. And he's just unable to move the needle on shipbuilding, which is a tall task for anybody.
Was there any role that he played in the war?
He's not in the chain of command. I mean, that would be more the CNO, the chief naval officer, and the central command commanders. I mean, he's the job of the secretary is the train and equip mission really for the Navy. So he's not in the chain of command. Could have an effect somewhat, but he's not really moving ships around the map in the Situation Room.
Okay, well, that makes me feel a little better about the guy that replaces him. Let me show you him. This is Hung Cao.
There's a place in Monterey, California called Lovers Point.
Yeah.
The original name was Lovers of Christ Point, but now it's become, they took out the Christ, it's Lovers Point, and it's really, Monterey is a very dark place now. Yeah. A lot of witchcraft and the Wiccan community has really taken over there. And we can't let that happen in Virginia. Virginia is, I mean, especially down in Roanoke, they're God-loving people. Right. Richmond, too, and Virginia Beach. And we just need to mobilize Christians across the nation. I mean,
Paul, have you been to Monterey, California? I grew up a little bit north of there, and Monterey, California is not a dark place. There is no history of witchcraft and Wiccan community there. I mean, this guy sounds insane.
Yeah, I think he aligns more with Pete Hegseth's vision of what the Pentagon and what the military should be, right? This kind of Christian-based organization in a lot of ways. I mean, that's what he ran on when he ran for Congress. He hasn't, obviously, as you saw in that clip, he hasn't shied away from that at all. So when it comes to culture issues, culture war issues, I think Hung Cao is probably more aligned with Hegseth than Phelan whatever have been.
General Anderson, what is your assessment of the caliber of people being appointed to leadership positions inside the Pentagon.
Well, Paul is spot on, Nicole. I mean, you know, these people are totally unqualified, and John Phelan is another poster child of that. I mean, he's just a sycophant that sucked up the Donald Trump, you know, a buddy of his from Mar-a-Lago. He had absolutely no knowledge of the Navy, no experience, no service in the military. And so I shed absolutely no tears for his departure. You know, Hegseth, as Paul points out, was dissatisfied with the pace of Navy shipbuilding, which is very, very difficult process, you know, heavily bureaucratic and slow and painful. And it doesn't happen overnight. And I would agree, there's been absolutely no operational impact. He's out of the chain of command. So is the CNO. This fight is being fought by Admiral Cooper and CENTCOM. And so rest assured that the war will continue to be as poorly run now as it was before he was fired. But I think that the firing points out, Nicole, that there's a cancer of leadership growing within the Pentagon. I mean, Hegseth, he wants to surround himself with these Christian yes men. You know, he doesn't want any critical thinking. He doesn't want any opposing views. He doesn't want any diversity. I mean, he famously struck off some black and female officers from the promotion list. He's fired a litany of black and female personnel and senior leaders within the military. You know, and I think that this whole thing points out that in World War I, there was an expression, you know, you got lions being led by donkeys. And that's exactly what's going on right now. Our enemies know this. This is a national security risk at the highest level, and Americans need to wake up.
Al Gore won the 2000 election by every measure that mattered except the one that counted. Won the popular vote by 500,000. Had Florida recounted properly, the Electoral College would have followed. The Supreme Court stopped count, and Gore conceded, not because he was weak, not because he didn't care, but because he understood that the institution of peaceful transfer of power was worth more than his president. He put democracy above his own selfish interests at the cost of something he had spent his entire life working toward. That decision still hurts. It was supposed to matter. And then 2020 happened. A man who lost by 7 million votes, who lost the Electoral College by the same margin he had called a landslide in 2016, who had a court in the country, including his own appointed judges, throw out his challenges, decided that none of that mattered. He decided that rules applied to everyone except him. Sent a mob to the Capitol, tried pressure Vice President onto overturning certified election, called state official and told them find votes, and then walked back into the White House 4 years later. 76% of independents are against Trump right now. That number is the entire bowl game for 2026. Independents do not belong to either party. They are people who watched Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly and all the true blue Trumpies and decided at some point that something had gone wrong. When 3/4 of those people are against you, that is not a political flip. That is a structural collapse of the coalition that puts you there. Kevin Warsh confirmation is exactly what Morning Joe was describing. A man going into a job interview for the most powerful economic position in America, knowing that the only way he gets a job is if the man interviewing him likes his answers. Cannot be independent from day one if your independence was never tested before day one. Gore put democracy above himself. That standard has never felt more relevant or more distant than it does right now. If you want to support me and raise our voices, please do subscribe to my channel. I know that you guys are my elders and I respect you and I need you to help me on the journey. Thank you so much.